आदित्य गुप्ता को हमने बताया भी था कि हम दिल्ली में रहेंगे।
सर कब तक हैं दिल्ली में?
नमस्कार सर, नमस्कार सभी लोगों को नमस्कार।
नमस्ते आनंद जी, नमस्ते नमस्ते
नमस्ते नमस्ते
नमस्ते मिश्रा जी।
नमस्ते सर, नमस्ते दवे जी को नमस्ते।
बहुत सुंदर।
सर नमस्ते।
नमस्ते 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 आदित्य जी।
प्रणाम सर, प्रणाम।
नमस्ते।
शुरू कीजिए
जी सर।
4 बज गए।
भारतीय दार्शनिक अनुसंधान परिषद शैक्षणिक केंद्र लखनऊ द्वारा प्रत्येक महीने के आखिरी में स्टडी सर्किल का कार्यक्रम होता है, जिस आज के इस कड़ी में हमारे प्रमुख वक्ता डॉक्टर आदित्य गुप्ता जी दर्शन विभाग दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी दिल्ली से हैं, और इस कार्यक्रम में हमारे बहुत से वरिष्ठ आचार्य लोग हैं। सभी लोगों को मैं प्रणाम करता हूं, और कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हुए आज के इस कार्यक्रम में जो विषय निर्धारित हुआ है, स्वराज इन आइडिया डिकॉलोनाइजेशन ऑफ द इंडियन फिलॉसफी, इस विषय पे डॉक्टर साहब का आज व्याख्यान है। कार्यक्रम को शुरू करने से पहले मैं सर्वप्रथम परिषद के सदस्य सचिव प्रोफेसर सच्चिदानंद मिश्र को निवेदन करता हूं कि अतिथियों का सर स्वागत करें। सच्चिदानंद मिश्र।
नमो नमः। Respected Chairman Professor R.C. Sinha sir, today's speaker Dr. Aditya Kumar Gupta ji, the learned audience, namely a few, Professor S. Upadhyay ji, Professor J.M. Dave ji, Professor M. Krishnaiya ji, Professor Poonam ji, and some more scholars who are there in this webinar, in this Dr. Lakshmikant Padhi ji, and some other people. We have very tight schedule today because it is going on Hindi Pakhwada. Today was the concluding day of Hindi Pakhwada, and we had just completed the last rituals. Last rituals in the sense that actually
Namaste.
Namaste. I don't wish that this Hindi Pakhwada or Hindi Divas should be organized. But this is unfortunate that we could not reach at the situation when it is not needed. So Hindi Pakhwada was there, and just today we have concluded that part, and now it is again another program, study circle, and tomorrow we have GB Council meeting. Therefore, we could not organize it tomorrow. Therefore, we shifted it today, and Dr. Aditya Kumar Gupta is kind enough to give us time, accept our invitation to deliver his lecture, even given such short notice. So the lecture which is organized today in this study center program is very important one on this due to this point, that this is Swaraj in ideas and decolonization of Indian philosophy. So on this issue, I am not going to speak too much because today's speaker will speak on this issue. Only one or 2 points I will say. This one is that till now we have seen Indian philosophy from Western perspective, and that perspective should be changed. We should think how Indian philosophy is grown, and many a times it is assumed that in Indian philosophical tradition, as it is evolved, it is less important, because Western philosophical tradition have plenty thoughts, and also it has so many systems, so many philosophies, and also there is a variety of thoughts. And here we have only a few philosophy free schools of philosophy, and this schools of philosophy is very alien concept in Western philosophical tradition. Therefore, Indian philosophy was taken by many philosophers, many people, as not a kind of philosophy, rather it is a species of religious thinking. So now we have think over the issue, and this is very important point. And surely, Dr. Aditya Kumar Gupta will speak on this issue. And I am here only to welcome the people who are who have joined this program as a speaker or as a listener, as participants. So, without spending too much time, I pay welcome to all the people, all the persons who have joined this program and who are going to join, because many people join the program a little later. So I welcome all of them, and without spending much time, I am handing over the mic to Dr. Jaishankar Singh. Thank you very much.
जी धन्यवाद सर। अब मैं आज के इस कार्यक्रम के मुख्य वक्ता डॉक्टर आदित्य कुमार गुप्ता जी को मैं आग्रह करूंगा कि अपने व्याख्यान से हम लोगों को लाभान्वित करें। डॉक्टर आदित्य कुमार गुप्ता जी।
सर सभी को प्रणाम।
नमस्ते मैडम।
जी प्रणाम।
Thank you very much, Dr. Jaishankar ji, respected Chairman Professor Sinha ji, respected Member Secretary Professor Sachidanand Mishra ji, respected Professor Prasad ji, Professor Dabe ji, Professor Upadhyay ji, and other Professor Lakshmikant ji, Mohanty sir, Professor Panni Selvam ji, and other respected teachers. See, in front of one's teachers, like our teachers, like it is really very difficult to speak, because whatever you plan to speak, whatever you will try to speak in front of, the planning was that there would be students, there would be, but once you find your teachers in front of you, so sometimes it becomes very difficult. But in other words, in other way, this is a blessings as well, that your teachers are observing you. They will tell you after the particular lecture that these many things could have been included. So in that way, I'm really blessed to see my teachers and respected professors in front of me. Basically, this topic, Swaraj in ideas, decolonization of Indian philosophy. Let me clarify, the Swaraj in ideas is not exactly same as as we find in K.C. Bhattacharya's Swaraj in ideas. Here intention is a bit different, though not totally different, but yeah, certain other things would be included in this lecture. I would try to speak. We know that our country is celebrating 75th year of independence, and we have achieved many things. 75 years back, we got political independence, we got bureaucratic independence, we got freedom from the clutches of Western powers, Britishers, and we became independent in that sense. And the definition which was given of independence by Western people, that this is the meaning of independence, keeping that meaning in mind, yes, we can say that we are independent. Politically, we are independent. Bureaucratically, we are independent. We can take our decisions. We can appoint our people. We can choose our prime ministers and presidents or representatives of the parliament. But the problem is when it comes to intellectual world, intellectually we are not independent. Like even after 75 years of our independence, we are carrying the same legacy which was set forward by Britishers. We can say Macaulayan education system or any other planning was there. But they had certain criteria, and on the basis of which they tried to judge Indian system in every walk of life, not only philosophy. In history, they set a certain standard. For science, they had set a certain standard that this is a science, and on that parameter, you have to decide whether Indians had a science or not. They set a certain standard for economics. They had a certain standard for itihas, or the history in English it is called. And from those standards, they tried to judge here the knowledge system. And whatever spectacles they brought in our country, from those spectacles, they tried to check the seriousness of philosophical debate, seriousness of knowledge debate here in India. And from those parameters, they declared that Indians do not have a civilization, Indians do not have a philosophy. So basically, when it comes to Indian philosophy also, the same tragedy happened. Like, they tried to check, yes, many translations took place, many Sanskrit texts were translated into English and other European languages. And from those translations, they came to know about Indian philosophy. But the problem was they tried to translate, they tried to know Indian philosophy from their own point of view. They had certain categories of materialism, categories of idealism, categories of realism, rationalism, empiricism, or certain, say, for example, even dharma, that religion was a dominant category of Western world. So various categories they came with, and they tried to analyze Indian philosophical system from their own categories point of view. Let us start with materialism. For example, generally it is considered, and it's the dominance of these concepts, dominance of these words is so high that we are still we could not achieve philosophical independence as far as our country is concerned. We are trying to judge Indian philosophy. Even I'm really very sorry to say that our philosophers who are working in different universities, they are philosophers of, especially foreign university, they are philosophers of Indian philosophy background, but they are trying to analyze Indian philosophy from Western categories. Like, their achievement is one that they proved that Shankara was a critical realist. Their achievement was that Charvak was materialist. That's all. But those categories were already there in Western countries. So what do they say? That, okay, materialism is a branch, materialism is a philosophy, and one of the philosophers in India, one of the schools in India is materialistic. So only materialistic school in India is Charvak. In the same way, there are certain people who say that knowledge can be, or the people or the schools can be divided on the basis of rationalism, empiricism, and they try to analyze Nyaya philosophers, Buddhist philosophers from realistic point of view, from idealistic point of view, from rationalism. They try to find rationalism in Nyaya. They try to find, in fact, they try to establish that this school is a rationalist, this school is empiricist. So those categories, when they were imposed, actually Indian philosophy lost its uniqueness. First of all, the term philosophy itself, like here we have scholars of Sanskrit, so no need to explain, but yeah, definitely philosophy and darshan was not same. As professor, various professors say that philosophy is love for wisdom, whereas darshan is love for life lived through wisdom. So here wisdom is for life. There wisdom was for the sake of wisdom, and that too just a knowledge. So they tried to, that parameter, first of all, we have to keep in mind that knowledge, that philosophy and darshan, somewhere some distinctions were there. But we did not pay attention to those distinctions. Generalization of philosophy, the philosophy is love for wisdom, so love for knowledge, and here wisdom and knowledge were not same. In fact, pragya and gyan were not different. But again, we did not pay attention to that. So we translated the philosophy as love for knowledge and love for wisdom in the same way, in the same nature. So first tragedy was that we translated darshana as philosophy. The reason is, the reality is, in philosophy, knowledge is more important. Knowledge as such is more important. Somebody came and somebody established a rule that through these methods we can have a knowledge. Okay, and then he's satisfied, no matter that knowledge is working in one's life or not. That was a system of knowledge. That was a system of various, you can say that various categories were put together at one place. But here, intention of darshana was not same as the intention of philosophy. Here, intention was life. The way we are living our life, the way we are managing our life, that management of life is not perfect. Buddha tried to say the same thing in the very first sutra. He says that life is full of suffering. It was not objective truth. It was empirical truth that after seeing your life, the way you are handling your life, the way you are managing your life, that life is full of suffering. So here intention was life. Even in Charvak, generally we translate Charvak as only materialistic school. But if you see in Western world, materialism is a systematic school which says matter is the ultimate reality, and they wanted to establish that only. That what is the ultimate reality of this universe is the matter, and they were considered materialist. But here in Charvak, we find that intention to declare the ultimate reality is not there. Here in Charvak also the life is in the center. Life is in the center. That there are some philosophers who translate Charvak people, and they say that actually even they wanted to give better life to common man. Common man was in the clutches of certain clever priestly class. One of the interpretations of Charvak. So to give proper life to them, so they do not come in the grip of these clever class that in the name of God you offer so many thousand rupees, in the name of God you offer food items to dead people, then your forefathers would be happy. So their intention was common man. In materialism, actually materialism wants to establish the fact that matter is the ultimate reality, no matter what the life is. That is a school of knowledge. You can say that knowledge system, materialism was there, but Charvak was not simply knowledge system. Here, in our system, knowledge is not the first. Knowledge is there, wisdom is there, but knowledge and wisdom for the sake of life. So even Charvaks cannot be translated completely as materialistic schools. This is my view. I personally think that is a wrong translation done by even our academicians, because those people brought certain philosophical doctrines, and our academicians happily accepted, okay, if they are saying, then everything should be fine. So Charvaks are materialistic schools of the world. Impossible. Like their matter is the reality, here life is in the center. And other misunderstanding we have in our Indian philosophy, the distinction of Indian philosophical schools into Astikas and Nastikas. Interestingly, like initially some people say that Astikas are those who believe in God, and Nastikas are those who believe in God, who do not believe in God. But some philosophers would come say, no, here the meaning of Astika is different. Meaning of Astika is that those who believes in validity and authority of Vedas, and Nastikas are those who believes in validity and authority of, who do not believe in validity of authority of Vedas. And on that basis, our Indian philosophical schools were divided into two groups by certain academicians. But ask yourself, is this classification right? Can you translate Buddha into Nastic category? On what basis can we group Buddha and Mahavir under Nastic category? Here, Astic means who believes in himself. Here, Astic means who believes in the, as Vivekananda used to say, that Vedanta does not believe in the fact that Astics are those who believe in God. God is not in the center of this Indian philosophical tradition. Here, Atma is in the center of this philosophical tradition. Yes, we have a different schools. Some say Atma means individual soul. Some say Atma means Ay Atma Paramatma, Ay Atma Brahma. Vedantic schools are there. Some say this Atma is without consciousness. Some say, just as in Nyayikas, we find that Shilavat, they use the term Shilavat. But here it is, and Atma is not in metaphysical sense. Atma in the sense of who believes in himself, who believes in herself. That is Astik. And who is an Astik? Who does not believe in himself or herself. The whole Indian philosophical system, be it Charvak, I'm not segregating Charvak from the Indian philosophical system. Even Charvaks were so positive that they wanted to give a wonderful life to human being, to a common man. Buddha actually, if take any category, any criteria of Astik and Nastik. If we say God, if we take the God, those who believe in God, they are Astiks. By that criteria, how many Astiks are there in Indian philosophy? Charvaks do not believe in God. Buddha does not believe in God. Jainas do not believe in God. Sankhya initially did not believe in God. Nayayikas believe in God, but just as one of the reality. Nayayikas' God is not same as Western philosophers' God. He is not a creator God. He just one of the realities. Corner में कर दिया कि भाई आप एक हो, चलो आपको भी एक कुर्सी देते रहे. Vaishesikas initially did not believe in God. And can we say Shankara believed in God? The same God which was there in Western philosophy, who is a creator, who is a destroyer, who is a omnipotent, omniscient? No, he did not believe in God. Mimamsakas initially did not believe in God. So how many philosophers, like if to some extent we say the theistic Vedantas or Astic Vedantis, again the translation is a problem. So those philosophers believed in God, but there also God is not same. Ishvara is not same as God. But we translated, we accepted God and Ishvara and Paramatma as the same. And what happened? We translated Astics as theistic. Theism, theos is a specific term of Western countries, which directs that those who believe in God, they are theistic. And which God? That God who is a creator, who is a sustainer, who is omnipotent, who is omniscient. That is God. But here, nobody believed in that God. How can Astics be translated as theistic philosophers or atheistic who do not believe in God? See, here when we say God is not in the center of this universe, does not mean Indians do not believe in any category or any degrees of consciousness. Somebody could be considered as God because of higher level of consciousness. Just as a Jaina philosopher says that the same Atma becomes Paramatma once that Atma achieves higher status or is liberated from the clutches of various kashayas. So what do we find? This Astic and Nastic distinction is also problematic in Indian philosophy. Whosoever has done it, either Sri Radhakrishnan ji or whosoever, this classification should be revised. It is not acceptable to any, because one, if we accept this classification, it means we are accepting only those categories which were given by Westerners. And what happened? Because we translated the concept of Ishvara, Paramatma as God, they came with the, see, when these Britishers or British academicians came to our country, actually they had certain philosophical categories as well. They were of the view that anybody can be a philosopher only when he or she talks about creation, he or she talks about God, he or she talks about soul, he or she talks about rebirth, if there or if not there, or the final day of judgment or whatever. So certain presuppositions were there. And with those presuppositions they tried to find where is God in Indian philosophy, where is God in Indian philosophy. Then some of our Indian academicians provided them the concept of Atma, Paramatma, Ishvara. But Ishvara is not God. Paramatma is not God. We forgot that nature of Paramatma, nature of God is totally different. They came with the concept of creation. But tell me, where is the creation in Indian philosophy? Nasadiya Sukta talks about that everything came out of this and that. Even you do not know, even I do not know. Even those who created, he does not know. It does not talk about the creation out of nothing, that God created this universe. If somebody has translated it as creation, that is a wrong translation. So, Indian philosophy does not talk about creation out of blue. In Western countries, we have creator God. God created this universe, God created human beings, God created everything and everybody. But in Indian system, we don't have a creation. Sankhya talks about evolution. Out of pre-existing Prakriti and Purusha, evolution takes place. Obviously, Charvaks will not accept any such supernatural agencies. Buddha did not believe in creation. What did he say? That everything, the material world is changeable, like, momentary. It's anitya, basically. Later on translated as momentariness by later Buddhist philosophers. So we see that even in Nayayikas, we do not have a creation. Creation means out of nothing, out of non-existing thing, he is a creative. God is just composer in Nyaya philosophy, Nyaya Vaishesika. God is just composer out of existing atoms, out of existing parmanus. God assembles this universe out of like on the basis of various karmas, on the basis of this and that. He is not a creator. Just as any scientist in present world is not a creator. Scientist is just discoverer. They declared that we have discovered certain things, but they are not creator. In the same way, God, the so-called Ishvara or Paramatma in Nyaya philosophy is not a creator. In Sankhya, they do not believe in any. Jaina philosophers say that why do you bring any Paramatma or any Ishvara in this theory of evolution? These atoms, these things will create themselves. There is no need. That would be interference. Okay? Shankara does not believe in God, because if everything is a consciousness, how can there be creation? How can there be destruction? Right? So, with the help of that concept of Maya and other things, he tried to explain everything. In Vishishta Dvaita Ramanuja and Bhakti schools, God is not separate from. Ramanuja says that Tattvotraya, like Chitta, and Ishvara. But Ishvara, again, Ishvara is not same as God of Western countries. So we don't have a creation here. We don't have a God here. The exact God, quote unquote, God and Ishvara are not same. So, and in the same way, there are certain other categories which were imposed, or in fact, which were brought to check the debate in Indian philosophy. For example, the debate of rationalism, empiricism. Western philosophers divided some schools or some philosophers under rationalist and some as empiricist, and Kant is having a different category. Rationalists are those who believe in the fact that knowledge comes out of reason. Okay, our mind is a storehouse of knowledge, so external world is just, it just reminds us about certain knowledge. That's all. Everything is stored in us. Empiricists are those who say that mind at the time of birth is a tabula rasa. Locke used to say, black, empty chamber. Okay, so that empty chamber, external world would write everything one by one, and then we will come to know. Whatever we know, whatever we experience is the result of external world. So they are empiricists. But here, great scholars are there. Can any of these schools, either Charvaks or Nayayikas or Buddhist or Shankara, be grouped under rationalism or idealism or empiricist category? Impossible. It is not possible, because the Nayayikas, what do they say? That everything is included. The concept of Atma is there. Concept of Atma, which is missing, actually either missing or clubbed with the mind in Western countries. So they cannot be grouped either rationalist or empiricist. But some of the academicians try to translate some our Indian schools either empiricist or rationalist. So basically, we find that these categories, rationalism and empiricism, cannot be imposed on Indian philosophical system. Similarly, there is a concept of mind. Like if anybody asks what is the distinctive point, between Indian philosophy and Western philosophy, I would say personally there can be other views as well. But I personally think one of the distinctive point between Indian philosophy and Western philosophy is the concept of mind and Atma. Here in Indian system, the substance of thought and substance of consciousness are not same. Like Western philosophers, I think therefore I am, or whenever they use the term soul, they use in terms of mind only, the thought process, thinking process, right? That was there. But here in Indian philosophy, the substance of consciousness and substance of thought are not same. Means mind and soul, no matter we give it a name, mind or soul or not, but substance of consciousness and substance of thought process generally are not same. And see, in our Nyaya philosophy, that we receive certain sensation through our sense organs, and that is reported to mind, manas, and then manas reports to the Atma. Atma is a real knower. Mind is not the knower. Mind is only Indriya. And mind as Indriya has been accepted almost in all discourse, including Charvak, including Buddhism. Mind as Indriya only. But in Western countries, mind and soul are the same thing. Now, if we take the same meaning of mind as we find in Western philosophy, we would miss, and in fact, we missed for centuries one of the wonderful, discovery of Indian philosophy, that was meditation. Meditation in Western philosophy is not possible, because if you are thinking being, if you are what you think, and meditation is when you achieve sakshi bhav, like even thought process you are observing. In vipassana, we say that particular breathing process is coming, going, breath is coming out, going out, okay, and even particular ideas are being observed. So if I am the mind, I cannot observe my ideas, because if I am the mind, how can I be away from my ideas? Ideas are the creation, or we can say the offshoots of mind only. So how can I observe my ideas if I am different? I'm not different from mind, because meditation requires sakshi bhav. Meditation when we are not doing anything physically and mentally, and we achieve that sakshi bhav, we are away. If happiness is there, थोड़ा साइड से हट गए, खुशी is there, साइड से हट गए, दुख है, साइड से हट गए, एक आइडिया आया, साइड से हट गए. एक साक्षी भाव, witness, even particular idea is coming, witness. No matter we give this name or not, Buddha remained silent. Okay, Buddha did not believe in any eternal soul, in fact. Okay, but one thing was sure, even in Buddhism, that what did he say? That even if idea is coming, you just be witness. Sakshi bhav. Vipassana techniques, various techniques were developed by Buddhist tradition. So what do we find? That if we accept Western category of mind and we try to translate Indian system, then some of the beautiful discoveries of or techniques of Indian spirituality would be missed out. Meditation is such a wonderful discovery by Indian thinkers, by Buddha, by other Mahavir, by other spiritual thinkers. But if we believe in mind and soul are the same, then definitely meditation is not possible. In fact, wherever meditation is possible throughout the world, that this or that technique of meditation is the result of Indian spirituality. Like go to Japan, go to China, anywhere, because philosophically it is not possible in Western mindset. So, and similarly, other categories like realism, idealism, critical realism, like some philosophers translate Shankara as critical realist. How can Shankara be translated as critical realist? See, critical realism and realism, these are various categories, and we must appreciate the way they have defined, the way they have explained. But when it comes to, like, analysis of Indian philosophers, like, it is very difficult to define Nayayikas as realist, Charvaks as realist, or Shankara as idealist or critical realist, whatever. So these basic problems were created by Western categories. I take some example of religion, dharma, Advaita, monism as well. How they were translated and how far these two different concepts are not same. We know that religion and dharma, religion basically is God-centric category. That they had certain concepts about religion, that creator God is there, which is also associated with philosophical beliefs. God is there, God created this universe, and God created morality as well, and that morality is codified in certain books. Those books became holy books, right? So basically, in Indian philosophy, we find the religion means, in Western philosophy, religion means God-centric category. And God-centric category, morality is there, but morality is secondary. God is first. God is first, morality is secondary. And you cannot make any change, because if God has created that morality, you don't have a chance to make any changes. But when it comes to dharma, like either you take a definition from Rigveda, not directly but indirectly, Varud Dharyate, but in the sense of Varud, that he sustains this universe, or you take Mahabharata definition, or you take Yagyavalkya Smriti definition, Manu Smriti definition, everywhere dharma has been defined in terms of morality. So dharma is morality centric, no matter you believe in God or not, no matter you believe in any supernatural agency or not. These dharma and morality and dharmic morality is flexible, because here morality was not a fixed, whereas in religion morality was a fixed. So that basically, what was the like a destructive outcome of this translation, religion as dharma, or dharma as a religion, that the concept of ism entered in Indian society as far as dharmic traditions are concerned. Because they translated dharma as religion, so they translated Buddha dharma as Buddhism, Hindu way of life as Hinduism, Sikh way of life as Sikhism. So this ism was the result of this ism translation, this dharma and religion translation. Had it not been the case, then can you say that Buddha's way of life was different from that of Upanishadic way of life? Buddha ever criticized Upanishadic philosophy? Never. He criticized rituals. He criticized certain things which were there in earlier, you can say, Hindu society or say dharmic society. So Buddha, what did he do? That in the name of dharma, you people are propagating casteism. In the name of dharma, you are engaged in this or that ritual, supernatural rituals. That is not a dharma. I will teach you dhamma. So that time in Pali, the dharma was called dhamma. So one of the three sharanas in Buddhism is dhammam saranam gacchami. I will take you to the refuge of dhamma. So he did not discard dhamma. He did not discard dharma. In the same way, Mahavir or Guru Nanak Dev Ji, they did not discard. Actually, in the name of dharma, when we started following certain other things, they warned us that whatever you are doing is not a dharma. So basically, this wrong translation created a divide in our society, and we started taking Buddha as Buddhism, Jaina as Jainism, Sikhism. So these were Jaina school of philosophy. But later on, because of wrong translations or wrong acceptance of these translations, we started taking Jainism as religion, Buddhism as religion, Hinduism as religion. Neither Hinduism is a religion, nor Buddhism is a religion, nor Sikhism is a religion. Why do we accept this translation? Why did we accept this translation? Why didn't we raise a voice? Our academicians had a responsibility to raise objection against these wrong translations. And this was not linguistic translations, because translations are bound to there. These were conceptual translations, wrong conceptual translations. In the same way, many people translate Advaita as monism. Advaita as monism, how can it be translated? Both concepts are different. Advaita on the one hand says that diversity is there, plurality is there, but behind the diversity, there is a non-diversity. behind the diversity, but they do not use positive language. They do not say what is that non-dual diversity. They would say like, reality is advait, not two. इससे ज़्यादा हम कुछ नहीं कह सकते, because positive language is possible only when plurality is there. If Advaita establishes non-duality on the basis of consciousness, and at the level of consciousness, plurality is not possible. So if plurality is not possible, even numbers cannot be used, even number one cannot be used. Whereas in monism, number one is the primary thing. Spinoza was a monist. Spinoza was not non-dualist. Shankara was not monist. What is the difference between monism and non-dualism? Non-dualistic school, Advaita would start with plurality and gradually would reach to non-duality. But it will not declare that what is that non-duality, it would remain silent. That's all, negative term. Whereas monism would start with one reality. Spinoza starts his definition of substance or philosophy by saying substance is that which is in itself and conceived through itself. Shankara did not start with Brahma. Shankara starts with Adhyas. Shankara starts with plurality. So these are two different philosophical traditions. It's not the case that we should criticize monism. Monism is something lower or religion is something lower. My observation, my basically submission is that we have not only translated our concepts wrongly, okay, but at the same time we translated those concepts in our daily life. For example, the term secularism, is it possible in dharmic category? If God is not in the center, secularism cannot be there in Indian society. Because for secularism, you need a divide, you need something supernatural agencies and this worldly things. So basically, these many categories are there. Those categories were superimposed in Indian philosophical system, and because of that, actually, we could not understand the real Indian philosophy. We tried to translate from Western parameters. So actually, there is a colonization of Indian philosophy. What is the need? Even K.C. Bhattacharya ji in his article says that there is a need to experience the rebirth. So basically, there is a need of rebirth. We must revise our categories. We have to ask ourselves, is dharma same as religion? Is Advaita same as monism? Can Charvaks be considered materialist? Can Indian philosophical schools be translated into Astiks and Nastiks? Can Ishvara and Paramatma of Indian philosophy be considered as God? Okay, so serious debate is required, serious decolonization is required. Indian philosophy from Indian mindset, as Professor Sachidanandji was saying initially, that there is a need to revise Indian philosophical system. From our point of view, we have to see Indian philosophy. As Swami Vivekananda used to say that every country, every society has certain unique concepts and unique categories. We cannot translate those categories into other categories. Raji Malhotra has written a book, Sanskrit Non-Translatables. In that book also he has mentioned these problems, that wrong translations have taken place, and the problem is maximum in our Indian philosophical schools, Indian philosophical tradition. So basically, conclusively, I can say that there is a need of decolonization of Indian philosophy, but this decolonization does not mean for the sake of decolonization. Anything good is there from Western philosophy, we should discard. No. We are following the tradition which says that Ano Bhadra Kratavo Yanta Vishyata, let noble thought come from all directions. If any Western category can be complementary and supplementary to our system, we must welcome it. If any wonderful ideas, that we should read materialism, but not Charvak as a materialist. We must read theism, but not Indian philosophical school as theist. We must know the concept of God, but not Indian philosophical Ishvara as God. So we need to change our mindset, and that would be real Swaraj of ideas. Philosophy of a country, like especially darshan of our country, actually decides every other aspect of knowledge system, every other branch of knowledge system. But if philosophy is in the clutches of certain wrong concepts, how can other knowledge system be perfect? So there is a need, because if philosophy is mother of all sciences, mother of all knowledge system, darshan is definitely mother of, like, life, or you can say this is for the life. So from this life, from this study of life, from this darshana, we must remove wrong concepts. We must see dharma as dharma. We must see Ishvara and Paramatma as Paramatma. We must take Astik as Astik, Buddha as a Buddha. Can Buddhism be translated? Buddha is be translated in any language? Impossible. So we should take, we must learn Western categories, but we should not forget our unique tradition. Because once we forget our unique tradition, K.C. Bhattacharya says that this is called cultural subjection. Only when one's traditional ideas are superseded without any comparison, without any evaluation. उन्होंने जो कह दिया वो सच हो गया, और हमारा सब कुछ गलत हो गया. जो about yoga, people say that when yoga became yoga, people started recognizing the importance of yoga became yoga, YOGA. अब पश्चिम ने एक्सेप्ट कर लिया तो हमारे लिए वो स्टैंडर्ड हो गया. इस माइंडसेट को हमें बदलना पड़ेगा. Until and unless we change this mindset, we will not be in position to defend Indian philosophy. There are, like, our Indian universities, good universities. You'll be surprised to know that very good universities and professors say, okay, you from philosophy, then, and if any student says, sir, I want to pursue research in Indian philosophy, they say, no, Indian nahi, philosophy mein bataiye. They do not take Indian philosophy as philosophy. So fault is ours as well. It is not their westernized mindset, because they are earning money out of that. So it is not only their fault, it is a fault of Indian academicians as well. We need to revise our categories. We need to look at unique Indian philosophical tradition. Only then there would be Swaraj in ideas. Swaraj of political things is a smaller Swaraj. Swaraj of economics is a smaller Swaraj. Until and unless our mind is free from any such clutches of Western categories, we cannot achieve Swaraj in ideas. With these words, I extend my thankfulness to ICPR for inviting me for this lecture, and to all the respected professors, to Jaisankar ji, Professor Prasad Sahab, Professor Member Secretary ji, Professor Sinha ji, Professor Davi ji, and other Professor Krishnaya MB ji, and Professor Pani Selvam ji, Professor Lakshmikant ji, and other respected professors, and some of my students are also there. So I extend my thankfulness. Thank you very much.
धन्यवाद डॉक्टर साहब, आपने बहुत अच्छा भारतीय दर्शन के कई पक्ष पे आपने अपने विचार को रखे. ईश्वर, परमात्मा, आत्मा, नास्तिक, आस्तिक सभी पक्षों पे आपने अपनी बात को रखा. अच्छा व्याख्यान रहा आपको एक बार पुनः धन्यवाद देता हूँ. अब मैं चाहता हूँ कि अगर आभासी पटल पे कुछ प्रश्न अगर लोग करना चाहें, पूछना चाहें या सजेशन देना चाहें तो दे सकते हैं. प्रोफेसर जी, हम सर के मैं
I fully agree with Professor Aditya Gupta ji. Sir, we had attended one conference in which a scholar like you said that we call Charvak Acharya. And why do we call Charvak Acharya? Because he said, Yavat jivet sukham jivet runam krutva dhrutam pivet. He did not say runam krutva sharabam pivet. So, he wants to make the life of ordinary people happy. You don't, take him to be an atheist, who is not concerned with the upliftment of humanity. He is. And therefore, we really call him Acharya. And that is how, we accept the views of the others also. And second thing, very correctly you said, the Western scholars may say, I think, therefore I am, Nietzsche. But, mind is totally, different from the soul, as you said correctly. Indriyani pramasini haranti prasabam manaha. Manaheo manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. We have innumerable, examples where we distinguish between the thinking faculty, the mind, the body and the soul. And therefore, we have to understand our philosophy independently after becoming independent.
Right.
थैंक यू सर। सर प्रसाद सर से निवेदन करूंगा।
प्रसाद साहब को कहिएगा।
अनम्यूट कर लीजिए सर।
I appreciate his range of coverage, that is of course, but in 40 minutes he has spoken lots of things. He has tried to clarify, he has tried to give his opinion how to face the challenge or the influence or impact of colonial. This is not actually a simple thing. And for that I appreciate he has tried to enlighten others or awaken us through his study. That's and that's why it's not a simple thing. It's not that decolonization is not of course this is a term, but at the same time it includes lots of the other everything, the whole way of thinking, and living and whatnot. But the question is that, okay, we were under British rule. That's okay. That was not. But suppose we were not in the British rule, and today that let us face a British, and I am a Buddhist or Hindu, etc. How to interact? How to communicate? How to communicate? If you ask a Buddhist or if you ask a Shankarite, they will not clearly communicate with each other. Not at all. Because they have different categorical framework, conceptual framework, theoretical framework, and all sorts of things. Terminology may be the same perhaps in many ways. That is it. Terms are there. For example, substance. Now suppose I take the Nyaya Vaisheshik Padarthas, for example. No, that is that. Now, if I have to communicate, I have my category with one meaning and the same category with a different meaning, for example. You see, the question is, when there is an interaction within Buddhism and the Vedanta, or within the Vedanta also, you see the difference between very sharp opposition between Shankar and Ramanuj, or Bhaskar, or Bhartri Prapanch, or even within the Upanishads, for example, there is no one way of discussing the Atman. Atman is okay. Atma Vidya, this is common thing is Atma Vidya is there. Question is that, suppose it is monism. Of course it is monism. But monism with what meaning? Monism. That is important. Which way? So if I say ekatva in what sense? Does it mean that there is only one reality? Or we are talking of the essence across the multiplicity, for example, but multiplicity is there. There is a multiplicity and there is oneness. Between the two, so far, nowhere in the world, I'm just for myself, I am speaking, the problem has not been solved. So if I say materialism, let us use the materialism. What is wrong? But with this meaning. Let us use monism in this meaning. Advaita is there, but Advaita is, there is not one. There are in the Vedas, in the Vedanta, or in the Upanishadic tradition, suppose there are 20. So if I say ism, now ism I am using, this is a convenient, you can say, not word of course, but it is some kind of suffix. If I say Sarvastivad or Sampradaya, Vad means it tries to present a theory, for example, well established, sufficient account of certain problems or certain this and that ideas, etc., in a coherent, consistent way, and I am presenting it adequate way. For example, it becomes a Vada, for example. We are using. The question is that how to communicate. How to communicate within also or outside also, for example. So this has all the advantage also. How to understand? And you will find that if I let me take my area is suppose Buddhism or Hinduism or anything else. Let us have one concept or one word. Now, concept and the word, these are two different things. And the concept itself is the structure of the mind, a structure by the mind, for example. Concept is not already given there. Concept is there. Because if there is Advait only, there is no duality, there is no plurality, for example. So mind is something, this is a mode of. I consider what is mind? Mind is different from soul, but what is mind? Does it have any element of consciousness or not? But if I say that mind has the consciousness, everything you are thinking, everything you are speaking, consciousness is there. Consciousness is the running thread, for example. And that is the river bed, for example, on which the waves of the river are created, for example. This is not a simple. And that's why every time, there was no need. If Upanishads were there, Upanishads or Vedas were there, they are not in one word. There are millions and billions of sentences and then the words, etc. What does it mean, for example? Every time, in order to express or communicate to those who have not read, किसी भी स्थिति में देखिए, आपको पूरी टर्मिनोलॉजी चाहिए, हर टर्मिनोलॉजी का एक मीनिंग चाहिए, चाहे इंडिया के अंदर हो, चाहे किसी विदेशी के दो. If Britisher is a Christian community, for example, they have their own categorical framework, for example. Categorical framework, the categories क्या है? उसमें concepts ही होते हैं. Concept कहाँ आते हैं? Mind तो आएगा ही, soul तो नहीं आएगा. Soul is not the creator. वो कैसे think करेगा? वो कैसे जो है sentence बोलेगा? वो कैसे plurality बोलेगा? कैसे करेगा? तो एक चीज है कि the nature has given all this multiplicity. Every individual is different from other individuals, for example. Lots of things are there, and that is the source of our existence, for example. इसलिए ये चीज परेशानी हो जाती, but at the same time ये try to but this is I appreciate you that at least you have tried to, as I told you, that you have tried to awaken us. We have to be not in a free style to use foreigners terminology, etc. They use in their own way. But if they come to India to understand India, they will come with their own categories, etc. And there is not one kind of categorical framework. ये चीज परेशानी तो है. तो एक अच्छा एक वक्तव्य है.
Thank you very much, sir. In fact, you awakened me that by giving various wonderful observations. But I also want to say certain things. Definitely, there are differences in our Indian society. For example, Dravya in Buddhism is not same as Dravya in Jainism or Dravya in Nayayikas. Definitely, categories are there, but meanings are different. But the thing is, there is no problem that if we have differences, there are bound to be differences because every human being is different. Then obviously observation and classification would be different. But the real problem here, by decolonization, I mean that if you are coming, for example, if anybody comes to say Magad area, right? And in Magad, Buddha means awakened person. So you say that who is a Buddha or what is a Dvaita? Then you would say that this is a near that, the particular English term to make him understand that this is awakened person. This is something. But still at the same time, you would tell him that awakened person is not exactly same as Buddha. Advaita is, yes, you do not know what is Advaita. You know a monism. Yes, this is near to monism, but it is not same as monism. They came to us and they tried to find what is this. These people, some people are going to temples, some are criticizing Shankara, some are criticizing Vishnu. But what type of, say this is dharma. Okay, tell me what is dharma. Britishers came and we tried to say, oh, this is like your religion. But at the same time, it was our duty to tell them that it is not exactly same as a religion. It is not exactly same as monism, as Wittgenstein in Western countries said. Crisscross resemblances are bound to be there, but they are not exactly same. There is no one-to-one correspondence in these words. So by decolonization, my intention here was that we accepted their translation. Like if they came to, like for example, computer was discovered in Western countries. Did we translate computer as any any Sanskrit word that this should be? We accepted computer as computer. We accepted religion as religion. We should have accepted it religion as religion. But the problem starts when we start taking their dominance as something right. We accepted that monism, what they have translated monism, so अद्वैत तो भूल गए, monism पूरा कह दिया, धर्म तो भूल गए, religion पूरा कह दिया. The real problem lies here, that differences are bound to be there, communication is required, we need to translate certain things in their language, but it does not mean we should accept whatever they have said, whatever they have decided. For example, Buddhism, you said in fact, this is true as well, that there is no one way of life. If there is no one way, can it be translated as Buddhism? If there is no one way of life, can it be translated as Hinduism? But we have translated Dharma as religion, that created a problem. So my intention is not that we should not translate, we should not communicate, and we should not convey, because without translation, nothing is possible. But there are certain terms which cannot be translated. Certain concepts cannot be translated. How would we teach them yoga with the translation? Will it be possible? They have accepted it as yoga. They have accepted it as yajna. They have accepted it. So in the same way, in philosophy, they must have accepted certain categories which were there in Indian system. By any way, Buddha cannot be the term Buddha cannot be translated, because this is a Magadi term. Even you taught me, sir, in class. You were my teacher. So this basically, the problem lies when we accepted their translation as everything. And whatever you said, okay, हमने मान लिया कि भाई आपने कह दिया religion, हाँ ये religion है. ये भी सच है कि धर्म जैसी कोई एक कैटेगरी है नहीं, क्योंकि ism नहीं था. It was not ism. But the moment we translated dharma as ism, we started taking Hindu as Hinduism, Buddha way of life as Buddhism. So the real problem lies in those translations which were taken as exact translations, which were taken as if Western people have said, that is, okay, we accept it and we should work accordingly. Because of that, our Indian philosophy could not be defended at international platform. Chinese, they did not accept the translation. So my intention here was that Western people translated our unique concepts by their own categories. Even there is nothing wrong, we should translate it dharma as religion, but at the same time, we must tell them, though it is near to religion, but it is not same as religion. Though you can say monism, okay, you said monism with this meaning. Why can't we say Advait with that meaning? Okay, you take Advait, but Advait meaning is monism in your area, like not to. So basically, it is the dominance, like to whom we accept the boss. So that was the reason of colonization. But sir, your insight, your observation will definitely enrich my thought process. I'm really thankful to you. Since masters, you have taught me and still you are teaching.
ये बात नहीं है. You have spoken very meaningfully. We don't have much difference. The only thing is that through your speech you have raised endless or you can say many problems also you have raised. That is the beauty, and that's why how to face. So you must come with some solutions. ये क्वेश्चन ये है कि हम टर्मिनोलॉजी को अपने कर दें, वो दैट इज क्योंकि वो डिफरेंट से आते हैं, एंड दैट्स व्हाई हाउ टू इंटरेक्ट. This is the beauty, and that is, we must be careful. I also struggle. All of us are struggling, and if we are very lazy, then religion and dharma एक है. धर्म के 48, 49 मीनिंग्स हैं, 49 मीनिंग्स हैं हमारे उसमें बुद्धिज्म में, और कई मीनिंग्स और हैं, 10 हैं, 12 हैं। किस सेंस में कहें, रिलीजन सेंस में भी आता है, प्रॉपर्टी के सेंस में आता है, फाउंडेशन के सेंस में आता है, सब्सटेंस के सेंस में आता है, लॉ जो कॉस्मिक लॉ है जो रीत के सेंस है उसमें सेंस में आता है. So we have to be, of course, it depends on the context, and that was my, and that's why this is a very influential speech. No problem, not at all.
So, Jaishankar ji, we
Yes,
have
sir.
got two eminent scholars sitting in the
जी
ICC.
मैं निवेदन करूंगा सर कि प्रोफेसर पनीर सलोम जी और प्रोफेसर डी के मोहंता सर, हमारे सम्मानित सदस्य जो इस कार्यक्रम में लाइव बैठे हैं और चेयरमैन सर के साथ हैं, मैं चाहूंगा कि अब सर 2 मिनट अपनी कुछ सजेशन इस प्रश्न पे इस पे रखें. प्लीज सर, प्रोफेसर पनीर सेल्वम सर.
Thank you. Not suggestion, but blessings.
That will be a
blessing.
Great honor and blessings.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Aditya Gupta ji, for your wonderful exposition. As Professor Prasad ji has said, you have given a lot of new points which we have to contemplate. But you see, the problem has started perhaps from the time of Radhakrishnan, because Radhakrishnan's Indian Philosophy Volume 1 and 2, in each and every page you see a comparison of Indian tradition with the Western, and he would always say Plato forms means this in Indian tradition, monism means this is in Sankara or something like that. So, in order to show perhaps that we do have Indian philosophy, that Radhakrishnan was defending Indian philosophy by quoting Western philosophy in all the way possible. But we must also see another side of Dr. Radhakrishnan. What was the situation in during Radhakrishnan period? That Indian philosophy was, I would say, I want to use the word humiliated by the Westerners, especially the Christian priests, by saying that Indian philosophy is otherworldly and karma is not acceptable, moksha is not acceptable. So he had to defend Indian philosophy by saying that Indian philosophy is something remarkable. So wherever necessary, he has to quote some Western passages or Western thinkers. That's one can understand. But now the question is, should we follow the same path? As you correctly pointed out, the concept of, the term mind sometimes is equated with consciousness. And there are a lot of difference between mind and consciousness. Similarly, you made a distinction between God and Ishvara. These are concepts which are misunderstood by the Westerners, and they have given that framework, and we still are following that framework. So what we need is, we have to retain our own cultural identity. As very rightly pointed out by Swaraj in ideas in, by great thinkers like K.C. Bhattacharya, it is very much essential that we must retain our own identity. What we need at present, I feel, is decolonizing Indian philosophy. Now, the problem is how to do that. Now, the best way, according to me, I may be wrong because great thinkers like Prasad is available here. So, I feel that as far as possible, we have to use our own categories. And you have very rightly pointed out the problem in using Western categories. This has done a lot of damage to our own thinking. But still, we are not able to come out of this Western methodology, which is very much present, unfortunately present in Indian tradition also. So the question is, how to come out of this? What is the solution to this problem? As very rightly in the last sentence, Professor Prasad has pointed out, that what is the solution? How to come out of this? That is, we are all now struggling. We have understood, at least after post-independence, we have understood the reality, we have understood that we must talk in our own terms. We need not depend on Western tradition, Western concepts. So, but how to do it is a very big problem. So, I am very grateful to you for showing some great insights with regard to this Swaraj in ideas, which is say, from your own perspective. And this, this hybridization of ideas, as K.C. Bhattacharya has pointed out, that has done a lot of damage to Indian tradition. So let us stand on our own legs. Let us develop our own Indian concept so that we can understand Indian philosophy better. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
धन्यवाद सर, थैंक यू सर.
Professor Dilip Mohanta.
प्रोफेसर D.K. मोहंता सर, प्लीज सर.
So we will be using the computer. So he will give you.
मोहंता जी नमस्ते. प्रसाद.
Speaker has raised a particular question. Also, Professor Prasad,
सर साउंड सर नहीं आ रही है. प्लीज सर, प्लीज साउंड, आवाज नहीं आ रही है. प्लीज
आवाज नहीं आ रही है. आवाज थोड़ा.
आवाज नहीं है सर, प्लीज साउंड नहीं आ रही है सर.
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
जी जी.
I would like to congratulate the speaker because he has raised a very important issue and which strikes in our mind how to do Indian philosophy. Nowadays, as Professor Panita Silvam has suggested, the days of Radhakrishnan is over. We have to look forward. As suggested by K.C. Bhattacharya, in our own way, we can put it as it is the freedom in thinking. But it does not mean you can think anything as you like. If there is justified reason, you can reject the Western as well as your predecessors. Here lies the freedom of philosophical thinking, as I understand. And secondly, you see, we can, instead of taking always the Western methodology, why we should not read the Western philosophy in our methodology, like Purva Paksha, Uttar Paksha debate. If you go back to history, especially in Sanskrit and Pali literature, there are references. The Greeks used to come to Takshila and learn the dialectics. Even Piro was the student of Supriya. Supriya was the student of Sanjaya. These evidences are nowadays available. And today's Greek philosophers, they admit it. They learned many things from India. So, second thing is about, he referred to Charvaka. Charvaka is one of the most original philosophy, although this has been misrepresented by Madhavacharya. You know, the folk literature, we are not looking to that. Folk literature, it contains a lot of evidences. Even the neuroscientists nowadays, they are reading this Charvaka philosophy. Long back in 2009, I presented a paper in a seminar. I said it's the brain self theory. Now, about the bipolar disorder, the doctors are treating in a different way. It is the function of the brain. So, this epiphenomenal episode is not an ordinary episode. Charvaka is not a very easy philosopher. Again, we must be careful even using the term, especially the Sanskrit terms. Say, for example, guna. The guna is used in one sense in Sankhya and in different sense by the Nayayikas. It is an adventitious quality, is the self to the Nayayikas. But it is the essence in Sankhya. So among the Indian philosophers also there are differences. And darshana and philosophy are not equivalent. Darshana is more than this philosophy. If you read even the Vedanta tradition, especially Advaita Vedanta, Sravana, Manana, Nidhi Darshana. The Manana itself is philosophical argumentations. And Nidhi Darshana is meditative. It is there, and none of this mean the religion as we understand in the Western sense of the term. It's correctly pointed out here, I think Pradhan or Dave, I can't remember. So nowadays we must be careful of doing Indian philosophy. Philosophy means philosophical problems. And J.N. Mohanty, in a recent article, I think not recent, 2015, published in Prabuddha Bharata, he actually has given some new arguments there. And he has a small, lecture also, Darshana. I think this should be available to the present day young scholars, especially because Mohanty has given the proper direction. Anyway, but the speaker Guptaji has raised a very pertinent issue before all of us, and so I congratulate him. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Namaskar.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सर,
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
थैंक यू सर। कार्यक्रम को अब आगे बढ़ाते हुए गुप्ता महोदय को मैं एक बार पुनः धन्यवाद दे रहा हूँ। बड़े अच्छे इस टॉपिक पर अच्छे ढंग से सजेशंस और प्रश्न भी आए, बड़ा अच्छा लगा। सर म्यूट हैं। अब मैं परिषद के अध्यक्ष माननीय प्रोफेसर रमेश सिन्हा सर को मैं आमंत्रित करता हूं कि अपने अध्यक्षीय उद्बोधन से हम लोगों को मार्गदर्शन करें। प्रोफेसर आर.सी. सिन्हा सर।
First of all, I must offer my namaskar to each and everyone, those who are on the screen and off the screen. So, I may not be in a position to name each and every one, but some of the persons, two scholars, Professor Paneer Selvam and Professor Dilip Mahanta is in the office, in the ICPR office, and they have blessed Professor Dr. Aditya Gupta and his one senior teacher, Professor H.S. Prasad, has also thoroughly graced you. And I find by blessing someone is not speaking only good words. So those who have given critical comments, they also bless you and bless thoroughly. And certainly a very senior director of the Research Institute of Akshardham, Dr. J.M. Dave. His blessings are with you because he was the first to intervene. So, very many persons, I saw Dr. Poonam Singh and Dr. Jaishankar named Professor H.S. Upadhyay, but they are not visible to me. I will give few comments, only two comments, or I will be touching the two very important points. I really congratulate you, and budding, I do appreciate the budding scholars, and you are certainly one of them. And the credibility and the credibility of institutions, both are of very high order, which I uttered informally also, but formally I can acknowledge. I'm sorry, because of some official work, I could not listen each and every sentence, as usually I do. But I will touch the one point which you have raised, that is a Swaraj in ideas, about Swaraj in ideas. So definitely K.C. Bhattacharya is the one 20th century philosopher who wrote this article in 1929 and published in 1932 in the Journal of Shanti Niketan. He was, at that time India was under British regime, but at that time when he wrote this Swaraj in ideas, so certainly he has got a message. And now after the independence and after 75 years of independence, that article is very much philosophically relevant. Swaraj in ideas, because at that time Swaraj, Indians long to get political freedom. But K.C. Bhattacharya at that time also gave the message to the country by writing this article, and especially to the intellectuals, that cultural subjection is a greater evil. Politically, he at that time he rather heralded that we may get political freedom one day or the other, and actually we got it. In that way, he was a kind of seer. But even today, you have rightly pointed out that we do philosophizing, and we take help of the Western terminology. And Dilip Mahanta and Professor Paneerselvam suggested that we should do Western philosophy in the Indian context with the Indian terminology. So, how far it is plausible, I don't know. But at that time, K.C. Bhattacharya, in that article also, he pointed out, rather he stressed that creativity needs admixture of Eastern and the Western terminology and philosophy, because in India at that time he was of the view that we should be deeply rooted to the classical Indian philosophy, and he was. If you go through his book, the only one monumental book, Studies in Philosophy, now 2 volumes have been conjoined together. So K.C. Bhattacharya had a very creative philosophical thinking, and I do understand that he deserves Aditya Gupta, because the new generation hardly go through to that article or the book, because they conceive that reading K.C. Bhattacharya is difficult, so they do not even touch most of the students and teachers. But since you have mentioned it and you have analyzed it and you have taken the help of that, his articles and his awards, so you deserve congratulations. The second thing, uh, that certainly uh, Professor Panniselvam also pointed out, that mind and consciousness. So, mind functions in fractions. Mind is decisive one. It divides, but the uh, consciousness is a certainly it is on the intellectual plane as well as it is on the metaphysical plane. It has got both metaphysical and rational computation. But rationality, uh, reason paves the way for the metaphysical consciousness. So that is a separate problem of philosophy. Uh, and the third point, that uh, in this contemporary age, when you are budding a scholar, how philosophizing you people think to do. Certainly, uh, you consider philosophizing. I, I, I think that philosophizing is a one thing, and philosophy which comprises systems is another. So in philosophy we have got certain schools in India too. In philosophy we have got in West also idealism, materialism, rationalism, empiricism. There are different schools, but philosophizing is a process. And certainly this process philosophy requires to be redefined. Philosophy is not only metaphysical probing or brooding, it is a cultural activity. As far as when you talk about the Indian philosophy, and certainly you emphasize on the Indianness, which I also do, and certainly I endorse. But we have to redefine philosophy because our classical philosophers, our ancient classical philosophers, they have done it. In the meantime, we were under British rule. So naturally, uh, thinking was a bit influenced, somewhat distorted. But now uh, with the change climate, philosophical climate, political climate, and cultural climate, we have to do a fresh redefine philosophy because philosophizing is cultural activity. Now it is not simply rationalization. So when we talk about Indian philosophy, certainly we go to the cultural roots of our country. When they talk about the Western philosophy or the German philosophy, so certainly they are concerned with their culture. So a growing scholar, rather I say budding, not growing, budding a scholar like you, who has got credibility, who has got very credible institution in which you are placed. So naturally, you can do express thinking. Thank you very much. With these words, I thank all the participants, all those who are visible and those who are invisible.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I
I
extend my
congratulate Aditya.
compliments to all the teachers, all the respected scholars
I
here.
congratulate
Madam Rekha ji, Madam other
तो
Dr. Shri
धन्यवाद का पृष्ठभूमि तैयार हो गया। धन्यवाद
जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। अब मैं धन्यवाद के लिए स्वयं
अगर
मैं
आदित्य जी अगर कुछ कहना चाहें तो 2 मिनट।
नहीं सर,
जी, अगर कुछ कहना
मुझे
चाहें
लगता
तो
है
बोल सकते
कि
हैं।
you have wonderfully blessed us, blessed me especially. Definitely I would include certain things as suggested by Professor Prasad sir, Professor Pandit Selvam ji, Professor Mohanta ji, Professor Dave ji, Professor Sinha ji, and other eminent scholars. Because without your blessings, progress will not be possible. So thank you. I extend my thankfulness once again.
And the one advantage with the budding scholar is that he is well aware of the Indian and the Western philosophy. A.C. Bhattacharya also he was a creative thinker. He knew Kant very well, and as well as classical Indian philosophy. So the plus point is that Shankaracharya was a great. I adore him, but he was not having the advantage which you have. I technologically, as well as you are well aware of the Wittgenstein, and you are well aware of the Shankaracharya. So uh, that advantage, very many thinkers they did not have. So now this is just a straight thinking. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Once again.
Best wishes, best wishes.
जी जी, धन्यवाद सर।
For future, we will be expecting more and more.
Definitely, sir. Your blessings are with me. Definitely, I'll do something meaningful in life.
ठीक है, सबको नमस्ते।
मैं
अच्छा, अभी तो बाकी है ना।
धन्यवाद।
अपने यंग मतलब यंग फिलोसफर डॉक्टर आदित्य कुमार गुप्ता जी को धन्यवाद देता हूँ कि आज इस मंच पर आए और एक अच्छे विषय को रखे हम लोगों के समक्ष। उस पर काफ़ी चर्चा भी हुई। इसके लिए उन्होंने भारतीय दार्शनिक अनुसंधान परिषद की तरफ से मैं उनको धन्यवाद दे रहा हूँ। प्रोफेसर एच एस उपाध्याय जी को भी मैं धन्यवाद दे रहा हूँ। प्रोफेसर जनक दवे, प्रोफेसर एच एस प्रसाद जी जो हमेशा मुस्कुराते हुए, और जनक दवे जी भी मुस्कुराते हैं। दो चेहरे मैं देखता हूँ कि आभासी पटल पर हमेशा हंसते हुए आते हैं, इसलिए आप लोगों को विशेष रूप से धन्यवाद मैं दे रहा हूँ। प्रोफेसर कृष्णैया जी को मैं धन्यवाद दे रहा हूँ। लक्ष्मीकांत पादी, डॉक्टर प्रोफेसर पूनम सिंह, आलोक टंडन भी जुड़े थे, उनको भी मैं धन्यवाद दे रहा हूँ। और परिषद के दो सम्मानित सदस्य जो कि चेयरमैन सर के बगल में बैठे हैं, कुछ मीटिंग से आए थे, वो भी अपने से हम लोगों को सम्मानित किया। प्रोफेसर पंडित सेल्वम जी, मोहनता सर, और हमारे अभी परिषद के ही हम लोगों को छोड़ के चले गए, मतलब कि अच्छे जगह पे चले गए। प्रोफेसर सुशील भारतीय दार्शनिक अनुसंधान परिषद की तरफ से आभार प्रकट करता हूँ, धन्यवाद देता हूँ कि वो भी हमारे इस कार्यक्रम में आए। डॉक्टर प्रोफेसर सुशील दुबे जी प्रणाम, धन्यवाद, आप इस कार्यक्रम में रहे। इस कार्यक्रम में डॉक्टर राजकुमार चौबे, क्षमा तिवारी, रेखा पांडे, घनश्याम पाल, कमलेश पांडे, रेखा यादव, हिना त्यागी, मनुमार जैन, प्रीति हंसदार, डॉक्टर पूर्ति मेहर बिहार से, श्वेता कुमारी दास, अविनाश कुमार सिंह, रश्मि, सोनिया मेहता, सिमरन सिंगला, टिम्पी, रीचा केला, पॉल, बहुत से लोग इस आवासीय पटल पर 50 से ज्यादा लोग आए। चूंकि ये कार्यक्रम हमारा यूट्यूब पर भी था, उस पर भी सैकड़ों लोगों ने इसको देखा। और क्या अंत में मैं इस कार्यक्रम में परिषद के सम्मानित अध्यक्ष प्रोफेसर आर.सी. सिन्हा जी, जिनके मार्गदर्शन से ये एकेडमिक कार्यक्रम अनवरत बढ़ता और चल रहा है और बढ़ेगा भी भविष्य में, ऐसी उम्मीद, ऐसी कामना हम लोग सोचते हैं। मैं उनको धन्यवाद देता हूँ। परिषद के सम्मानित सदस्य सचिव प्रोफेसर सचिदानंद मिश्र सर को, जो कि एक खुद एकेडमिशियन है और शैक्षणिक कार्यों में वो बहुत गति रखते हैं और शैक्षिक कार्यों में बराबर हम लोग उसे सलाह देते रहते हैं, और उनको भी मैं धन्यवाद देता हूँ। चूँकि डॉक्टर पूजा व्यास कुछ विशेष कार्य से आज वो जुड़ी जरूर थी, लेकिन डैश पे मंच पे आई नहीं, कुछ विशेष कार्य की वजह से उनको मैं धन्यवाद दे रहा हूँ। और इस आवासीय पटल पे जितने भी सभी हमारे प्रतिभागी, आचार्य और जितने भी गणमान्य व्यक्ति जुड़े हैं, मैं उनको एक बार पुनः भारतीय दार्शनिक अनुसंधान परिषद की तरफ से धन्यवाद देता हूँ, प्रणाम करता हूँ।
सुशील दुबे जी को स्पेशल धन्यवाद दीजिए।
माननीय चेयरमैन सर और भारतीय दार्शनिक अनुसंधान परिषद शैक्षणिक केंद्र लखनऊ की तरफ से, क्योंकि प्रोफेसर सुशील दुबे जी लखनऊ में बहुत दिनों तक काम किए हैं और सौभाग्य से कि मैं के चेयर पर बैठ के ये धन्यवाद ज्ञापन के लिए यहाँ पे हूँ, उन्हीं के कमरे में। ज्ञान उनके जो एक तो इस कमरे में हमेशा विराजमान है। उनकी एक गणेश जी की मूर्ति बहुत दिनों से यहाँ पर रखी है, मैं पूजा करके शुरू करता हूँ। मैं प्रोफेसर सुशील दुबे जी को, जो हमारे प्रोफेसर नियुक्त प्रोफेसर अभी नव नालंदा महाविहार दर्शन शास्त्र विभाग राजगीर में है, मैं उनको भारतीय दार्शनिक अनुसंधान परिषद के सभी कर्मचारी, अधिकारी, अध्यक्ष महोदय और सदस्य सचिव जी की तरफ से एक बार पुनः धन्यवाद देता हूं और प्रणाम करता हूं।
सबको प्रणाम, सबको प्रणाम,
सभी को नमस्ते।
दुबे जी विशेषकर
बहुत ही अच्छा।
थैंक यू मैडम।
रेखा पांडे जी आपको भी प्रणाम। रेखा पांडे जी आपको भी
सभी गुरुजनों को प्रणाम।
प्रणाम।
ठीक है।
जय